All right, that, hello? We're still getting reverb.
It's me, yeah.
You just need to mute your, yeah.
That's good, right. Are we on, so I will call to order the meeting of the Town of Wenham's Planning Board for Thursday, October 10th, 2024 at 7 PM. We are in person at Wenham Town Hall. We are also being recorded on Zoom. And HW Cam is also broadcasting us. The agenda online at the town's website has a link to the Zoom meeting if you're watching the television and would like to join us on Zoom. So the first item we have is a continued public hearing for the 47 Maple Street definitive subdivision. Kate, do you need to read anything into the record? I think we've opened this already, so we don't have to read the notice in. This is 47 Maple Street, obviously Wenham, for approval of a 4-lot definitive subdivision plan, which has been continued from the hearing on September 12th. At that point, we had asked for some additional information, and I understand that it was received a week ago, is that true, by the town? And I can see that Mr. Bob Griffin is here and would like to speak to us about it.
So we were asked at the last meeting to get our revised plans in the following week, and we did.
Yes.
And then
Great.
they went to DGT for the peer review, and their comments came back October 1st. There was a little bit of some minor edits that were requested in the DGT plans, and we returned those around in a day, so we got them back to the town on October 2nd. And then Margaret sent an email on October 3rd requesting some changes to the landscaping plan, which we provided either on the 3rd or close to that. But anyway, so they're pretty minor changes. So I think we're all caught up with our comments. I think we've been responsive to all the comments received. And of course, would look forward to, I'll just describe them briefly if you wish.
Sure.
And,
I would also note that
questions.
when I spoke to Margaret on the phone about the meeting, she mentioned that she had had some communication with the police, the fire chief as well, about the need to post signs on the street because of the width waiver. So
Yeah.
maybe you'll address that when you
Yeah.
speak about it.
Yeah, we're happy to put whatever signs the town thinks are necessary. So
I don't have a copy of that email here, but Kate, I'm sure you do, so.
All right,
Bob,
so-
before you
Yeah.
get started, would you mind just pulling the easel back a bit? It's blocking the.
They went.
I think further and you might run out of space.
Yeah, you're gonna run out of space. Sorry. That's fine. That's fine.
I think I can be okay. Oh, yeah.
So here's the letter from Jeff Baxter. The letter dated August 8th will stand with 2 modifications. 1, beginning the road width will be acceptable at 22 feet, and 2, there'll be 3 no parking or fire lane parking and fire lane, I don't know what that means, signs on each side of the road leading into and out of the circle, 6 total signs. And I think the rationale, from what I understood it when I spoke to Margaret, was simply that because you're requesting a thinner, it's the wrong word, but thinner street
Right.
than the requirements would otherwise be, and we need to vote on a waiver, that we want to make sure that the fire trucks have enough room to pass by, so.
Okay. We did change the lot layout as I briefly described on September 12th. I can go back over that if you want, but basically, if you remember, the idea was to change the layout of Lot 4 in particular so that we didn't have to remove any of the pine trees that run between there and the 50, I think it's the 52 Maple Street lot. And that had been a concern of some of the neighbors that were another another lot back from there. There's 2 or 3 residential houses in that area.
Neighbor, broker, developer.
Do we need that?
All right, so, again, I think that the changes are all pretty reasonably minor.
And I note that the road, the right-of-way is at the, what is that, the western end of the property now?
Yeah.
In order to be responsive, I think, to the police comments about safety.
We have better sight distance with the roadway at this location than we have another version with it up here.
Yeah.
I think it was earlier. And we also provided a sight distance graphic with our response to the peer reviewer, which showed that there was at least 305 feet of sight distance in each direction. This road is posted 30 miles, 30 miles per hour, and the sight distance for a 30-mile-an-hour road is around 250 feet. We went with the police officer's recommendation of 40 miles per hour to evaluate sight distance, which gets you up to the higher 305 feet. And I think there's more than 305 feet in each direction. So I think we meet the sight distance requirement with room to spare. So we didn't make any changes to the existing conditions plan other than picking up all the trees
Oh, yeah.
in the in that little strip. So there's a lot of them. And when we get to that strip of trees, we do have a note that a little bit of pruning will be required to get the Lot 4 house in, but we don't need to remove any trees to get the house in. Just pruning some branches. So this shows the layout, same lot as always, same lot configuration, same 50-foot wide right-of-way, 22 feet of pavement with 4 feet on each side, an island in the middle which has a 60-foot diameter. The town subdivision regulations call for a 120-foot diameter cul-de-sac. We meet that outside diameter for the paved cul-de-sac, but we added the landscaped island in the middle, primarily because it's just a small subdivision. I think it improves the look and reduces the amount of runoff a little bit. So that was that. This site layout plan, I highlighted the trees to be removed, and basically they're along Maple Street, but there's a row of arborvitaes to be removed. There's a couple of trees in front of the existing house here that get removed as part of the cutting the slope back to make sure that we get the slight distance that we've mentioned. So it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, there's another tree there, 4, 5 trees, in addition to the row of arborvitaes that get removed as part of those improvements. That's about all on this one. So the notes here just say that we revised the layout a little bit, and we also, on October 2nd, made a minor change to the plan. We got a little bit more specific about the stone wall reconstruction. So our idea is that the stone wall along Maple Street, it's a nice feature. We'd like to put it back. We just want to make sure that we don't put it back so high as to create a sight distance obstacle. So we've got an 18-inch height for the stone wall, and the idea would be to replace it in basically roughly the same location as it is now. I think when we get out there and we actually are building this thing, we'll look down the road and make sure that it's manageable. If for some reason the 18-inch height isn't, reasonable, or it's causing a sight obstruction, we just push it a little further back.
I was going to say,
Towards
could
the
it
house.
just come back toward the
Exactly. That would be
existing house? Yeah.
an easy solution. The changes to Maple Street, the stone wall relocation, the cutting back of the grades and removing the trees, all fall under the scenic road regulations, so we'll have to have a hearing and application for that at a later point in time. The grading and drainage plan, a couple of other features. Each house has 2 dry wells, so 2 and 2. Those are 1,000-gallon dry wells, and we're going to direct roof runoff into there. That'll significantly reduce the amount of runoff. We also have a large infiltration bed underneath the cul-de-sac. As part of our September submittal, we gave the town and DGT our soil testing results associated with, I think we did 2 or 3 test pits in the vicinity of the infiltration structure. Very good soils at this site. I've mentioned that before, but we've got, mostly sands, less than 2 minutes per inch, very easy to design septic systems and infiltration systems when you have such wonderful soils. So we're lucky in that regard. We also note on that plan this slope grading area here that we talked about a little bit.
I don't have all the papers, excuse me, I don't have all
I
the
don't have all the
is it-
papers.
I don't have all the paperwork in front of me. Was there a concern from the consulting engineer about the soil testing that you did? Was it in the same location as where you're proposing the leach fields or septic?
That
Was that
wasn't, that
corrected?
was, right, that was one of our comments back probably August.
Okay,
And so we did dig some additional test pits. I think I've got them. Got a test pit here, and we've got, let's see, well, anyway, there's one right underneath the infiltration pit there. We were a little constrained in our test pits in that we didn't want to ruin the vegetables that were still growing at the time of the test pits, but we've done a lot of testing on this property now and pretty consistent results. So I think we're in good shape on the soils.
and it would still have to pass the town's muster even after you,
Right, we've got to submit
Board of Health.
detailed
Thanks.
plans to the Board of Health,
Right.
depending on how many
Thank you.
bedrooms the house ends up being, and all that has to happen, you're right. Okay. Oh, the other thing I noted, I highlighted on this plan was the 100-foot buffer zone. There is a wetland on the opposite side of Maple Street, and it just clips the proposed road improvements a little bit. So there is a conservation filing that needs to be made. It's probably be an RDA application, it's a relatively simplified application, but it's in their jurisdiction, and so we'll have to do that.
All right.
This is our utility plan. There was some questions about, well, first we added a light post in the middle of the island, and there was a question about labeling the hydrant location, the size of the hydrant on Maple Street. It's an 8-inch line, and the electric telephone cable will be underground after we go overhead across the street to a telephone pole, and then we'll drop there and go underground to the 3 houses.
So I think your light post answers one of the questions that I had, which is, will the island have any vegetation on it, or, is it just gonna be grassy?
It will have some vegetation, and I'll get to that in 1 or 2 sheets. Not to put too much suspense into the hearing.
Yeah, no.
Here we go.
Here we go.
So this is the plan after it's been revised on the second to add some information about the height of the stone wall. That was a comment that came out on October 1st, and then there was some comments on October 3rd about the trees.
Yes.
And so what Margaret asked us to do is to put a tree every 40 feet on the road, so that we have, I think, 15 new trees and 2 existing trees to use. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 15. And this tree is existing, and I think it looks reasonably healthy. This tree also is existing and looks reasonably healthy. So I think we can use those 2 existing trees. But if for some reason, the trees had to come down, they were unhealthy or whatever, then we would just replace them with a new street tree. We also put a table at the top of the plan regarding the species. And I think Margaret spoke to the tree warden about this, but we have red maple, hawthorn, and honey locust up there.
Yeah, the conversation I had, she said that Wynn would have identified
We
species.
identified
There
the
is?
species 3 of each.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
so-
you. That's helpful to know.
Right, so, and then in regards to the island, you can see we've added some 4 clusters of 4 shrubs, and they're American yews, I think.
Mm.
Right. Just to break it up a little bit, and I think it'll look nicer.
And otherwise grassy?
Yes, and I really didn't want something that's going to grow very tall. I want to have good, again,
Sight.
sight distance and, good security. If police drive in, I want them to be able to see what's going on, so those shrubs can stay pretty low, and they don't grow very fast.
These are still just concept dwelling locations, right?
That's right, yeah. All the on-lot improvements are conceptual. We've provided a little bit of screening of between, Lot 2 and Lot 1, where the future homeowner there would be coming in, just to provide a little separation there. And you can see there's also some arborvitaes between Lot 3 and Lot 2. But I'm sure each of these, houses are going to be nicely landscaped. What we've shown on the plan is approximately a 4,000 square foot house, which I think is what the market would be looking for on a lot in Wenham these days. But, it could be bigger, it could be smaller. Let's see, and I think that's, we did provide an additional detail sheet. I can talk about the details if you want, but I think we provided some more details about the water connection, or revised some connections. We updated our profile, and we also provided an erosion control plan. This is a new sheet, and the erosion control plan calls for construction of a construction entrance off of Maple. We provided identified some areas for soil stockpiling. We don't want to stockpile soil on an area that would be used in the future for a septic system, so that's why we do that. Also a soil stockpile area in the middle of the cul-de-sac. And erosion controls around the entire site, and silt sacks in the catch basins near Maple Street.
And it's a pretty flat piece of property, as I
It is,
recall.
yeah.
So, and there's no plan to move the existing house, is that right?
That's correct, yeah. And I think that sort of sums up our changes.
Does the board have any questions?
Can we go back to the no parking signs?
Sure.
I don't think it's an issue for the engineering staff. I think it's more of an issue for us. Are they mandatory?
No, they are,
Sorry.
because there's a waiver requested from the width of the road. Jeff is concerned that if there's parking on the road, he won't be able to get a fire truck in and out of the subdivision.
So my
So
my
he's
concern is
asking for
then,
no parking signs.
with that, so let's say house number 3 wants to have a graduation party, and they have to be careful not to park over the septic leach field. People park on my grass, but are they now going to be parking on Maple Street, which is a pretty narrow street to begin with bicycle riders, as you're aware, and walkers? Are we just pushing that kind of traffic onto Maple Street, which really probably couldn't handle even one side parking? And I don't think it's marked now for no parking. Do we have to extend the no parking out onto Maple Street as well? Just to accommodate people's, lifestyle of parties and graduations.
Okay, do you know whether this was discussed with Jeff?
Yes, so she actually says the fire code requires at least 20 feet of pavement and uninterrupted for fire trucks to pass. So Wenham previously has required these signs at the Boulders and Middlewoods. So
They have.
Yes, so I don't know if at the Boulders.
Unlikely to have graduation parties, but.
Yeah, it's not a good.
And
example.
there is some parking around the clubhouse there as well.
Yeah.
So I have 2 points on this. One, I think 6 signs is excessive for this road.
Yeah.
Maybe 2, maybe 4, I don't know. 6 seems like it's a lot. Second, this is a private way, and it's going to remain a private way.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
So I have a question about the enforceability of these. We can certainly require the signs to go up, but I'm not sure it's enforceable.
Yeah, I think it's more to the point, if they're up and someone's parked in the way and there's an emergency and Jeff has to brush past a car, I think it
Right.
maybe
No, I get that.
relieves the town from liability.
That's why I've had
Which I
this,
think.
I've had this issue come up in a different subdivision, which Bob might recall, but anyway.
When it's, to a degree, they do what they want, and is it creating a nuisance for the community if everyone does head out to Maple and park along there?
And would it satisfy Jeff's issue if the no parking were on one side of the street? I would imagine in this kind of neighborhood, you will talk to your neighbors if you're having some sort of engagement or graduation party, and need possibly to ask for their benevolence in allowing guests to park on their driveways or on their lawns, given that they're living in a private subdivision.
I just raise it as a,
I'm wondering if Jeff would be satisfied if only half of the street were no parking, one side.
I'm not going to speculate. I'm happy to put the signs up, so.
No, I'm not asking you to.
that's why I said it wasn't your,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Not your issue.
Right, right.
So
Jeff says,
The rationale is that the fire code requires at least 20 feet of pavement, and the road is 22, right? So one side should technically,
if one side is,
No, no.
well, no, because the car's.
Well, as long as you
6
well,
feet.
pull
Yeah.
into the grass,
it's,
I mean-
you're not curbing this, right? You've asked for a waiver from curbs.
That's correct.
So, and there is a right-of-way that extends beyond the 22 feet, is that correct?
The 4-foot shoulder on each side, and then it slopes down into a grassy swale.
Okay, but the shoulder is before the swale, so you
That's
could, in
correct.
theory, park
On the
off the
shoulder,
pavement
right,
on
yeah.
the shoulder.
For sure.
What's the diameter of the roundabout?
So the outside paved diameter is 120 feet, and the island is 60 feet. So there's 30 feet of pavement on, across the cul-de-sac. There's 22 feet of pavement in here.
So there's more paved width in the cul-de-sac than there is on the stem.
So there
going
could be a
out to
lot
the
of
street.
parking within the cul-de-sac, which wouldn't have the same issue. The no parking signs are only in the entryway, right?
Oh,
I think you wanted the whole street.
wants the whole street.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You're saying it's 30 feet of pavement in the actual
in the cul-de-sac.
circumference there?
so maybe
So
it's
that'd be
just,
fine.
maybe the,
Yeah.
no parking signs around the stem?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
All right, well,
Maybe we can adjust them at the time of construction as, recommended by the fire department or something like that.
and as far as you know, Kate, we have all of the papers that have been amended that they're all in our possession. We're not waiting for anything. Is that right?
We are not waiting.
We are not waiting for anything. So we have everything in theory that we
Ooh.
need.
good, great.
And I appreciate you turning things around really quickly. We've been
Glad to do it.
having conversations amongst ourselves about not seeing things in time, so really appreciate that.
Let's do it.
So we have the option of making motions on various waivers that have been requested. They need to be done one by one. The waivers, as I understand them, are a waiver from the shoulder width requirement of 4.4.1 to allow for a 4-foot shoulder width on each side of the street. A separate waiver from 4.1.6.6, the turnaround diameter to allow for a 60-foot diameter island and 120-foot pavement turnaround with 30-foot pavement around the cul-de-sac. A separate waiver, and we would require a motion to grant from 4.2.1.2, which is the curbing, the granite curbing, to allow for no curbing, and thus the parking on the side. We need to vote on sidewalks, because I think you've asked for a waiver from the sidewalk requirement.
Right.
And then there's a series of conditions that we can talk through at that point. I would like to know what the board's pleasure is. Do we want to go ahead with a vote on this? Is there anything we think we still need? I mean, maybe the locations of the no parking signs, but we can also put those in as a condition, I think. Anybody have any thoughts about this that they want to
Do we want to see if there's any comment?
Oh, that's true.
I
Does
mean,
anyone have
I'm assuming
anything?
are you done, Bob, with your
I am.
presentation? Okay.
I know that the folks there are 3 people here in the room, or maybe 4 who want to speak to it, but I think 3. And I don't know if there's anyone online. Kate?
No one's hands up so far.
Okay. We need to close the public hearing before we do anything. So if there's no more,
To make
Not
a
if you-
motion
Not if
to,
you're taking public comment.
well, if
Oh.
there isn't any comment, we
Oh, I know. I
need to
didn't
take,
know if we.
that's what I'm saying. We need, if there is no comment, and I'm not seeing any in the room, and Kate is not saying that there is any online, then the first order of business is to close the public hearing before we deliberate.
I should make a motion to close the 47 Maple Street definitive subdivision public hearing at 7:28 PM on 10/10/24.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anderson,
4 ayes. So, we have Zooming. We have waivers to vote on.
Madam Chair, would you want me just to read them out one at a time? And
I think they need to be voted on individually.
Yes.
We need a second for each one.
I'll just
You
start
would-
reading? Yeah,
that would be
sure.
lovely.
Number one, a motion to grant a waiver from section 4.1.4.1 shoulder width to allow for a the number 4-foot shoulder within each side of the street.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Do you want a roll
Aye.
call?
Yes, I think so, because we are on Zoom. So
Okay.
Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, I.
Woodland, aye.
That motion passes.
Motion number two, motion to grant a waiver from section 4.1.6.6, turnaround diameter to allow for a 60-foot diameter island and 120-foot pavement turnaround with 30-foot pavement around the cul-de-sac.
Second.
All in favor? Weeks says aye.
Hold on,
Yep.
if I might.
Discussion.
What is the requirement under 4.1.6.6? Anyone know by
Hey,
chance?
can
Sorry,
you
it's
pull
not
that
a
up?
pop quiz.
So I think this is the one that, where it requires a 120-foot diameter paved turnaround. So the island is not contemplated in the subdivision regulations.
So it's the island that's the,
Right.
that's the addition.
Perfect, thank you.
Anything else?
No.
No? So I'm ready for a vote. I'm going to vote aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson,
I.
Woodland, aye.
that passes.
Number three, motion to grant a waiver from section 4.2.1.2, granite curbing at intersections to allow for no curbing.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
A call for a vote. Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, I.
Woodland, aye.
Passes.
And number five, 4, motion to allow the plan for a definitive subdivision at 47 Maple Street to be developed as shown on the approved plan with no sidewalks necessary.
Second.
All in favor? Weeks says
Wait, wait.
aye. Oh, discussion?
Okay, so it's only to the sidewalks.
Yes.
This
Okay.
is related to the
Yes.
sidewalks
Mm.
because there are conditions that we need to vote on. Unless you want to vote on the conditions first.
It's just a weird motion.
It,
But-
it's, yeah,
Awkward.
it sounds like it's asking for the whole development
Yeah,
to be
exactly.
approved. No, I got that. Do you want to
Anderson, aye.
hold
Do you want
this one?
Actually, do you want to amend it?
Yeah.
Why don't you offer a friendly amendment?
I'll propose one.
Please.
Mr.
Okay.
Pascarello?
That we move to not require sidewalks for the proposed subdivision
At 47 Maple Street.
at 47 Maple Street.
Cool. Second.
Okay, the amended motion for a vote. Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, I.
Woodland, aye. Now it's back to you, Madam Wright, for the discussion of the,
Yep. I'm just writing notes here. All right, so the next motion is to approve the definitive subdivision at 47 Maple Street as submitted with special and general conditions. So the general conditions are, I think, as we've granted, I mean, with the waivers as granted. The special conditions, I don't know what she's thinking about in terms of other general conditions. Can you think of anything?
There's a list of general conditions.
Is there?
that- On the screen.
Oh, sorry.
Oof.
Do you want me to make it bigger?
It would be helpful, yeah. So what's on the screen is general conditions that pertain to most subdivisions in Wenham. Within 60 days of the date of approval, the applicant presents the recording plans to the planning board for its endorsement in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Sections 81V and 81X, which plans make reference to the definitive subdivision approval and the covenant. The second is construction of any of the common areas shall not commence. The town's building inspector shall not issue a building permit for a new habitable structure on any lot, and no lot shall be sold to a person other than the applicant in each such case unless and until the applicant has recorded the recording plans and the definitive subdivision approval with the Essex County Southern District Registry of Deeds, executed and delivered to the planning board a restrictive covenant in the form appended hereto as Exhibit A and incorporated by reference, and recorded the same with said deeds, which recording shall be deemed to have occurred by the execution of said Exhibit A and its recording as so executed, along with the definitive subdivision approval as provided in Clause A above, and inform the planning board in writing of the recording references of the foregoing instruments. The applicant and or owner shall perform and or observe all of the provisions of the covenant. The covenant may be substituted from time to time by one or a combination of the surety methods allowed under General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81U, Paragraph 7, which does not include letters of credit, provided that in each instance such substitute surety shall be sufficient in the opinion of the planning board to secure performance of the remaining roadway and infrastructure work. Such substitute surety shall be in an amount equal to 150% of the estimated cost to complete such remaining work as reasonably determined by the board's consultant. The applicant, at its sole option, may place any cash surety in a gift account under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, so as to facilitate the return of the funds if not used by the town and use of the funds if they are used. So to be clear, this is all about making sure that there's enough money to make that the roadway can be completed and other infrastructure. Condition 5, areas disturbed for roadway infrastructure construction shall be loamed and seeded during construction as soon as possible. 6, during construction, streets shall be swept and catch basins sumps shall be cleaned regularly at least twice a year. The applicant shall maintain all portions of any public way used for construction access, which would be Maple Street, free of soil, mud, or debris deposited due to use by construction vehicles associated with the subdivision, and shall regularly sweep such areas as necessary. And 8, the owner or its representative shall from time to time during construction provide such benchmarks of property elevations on plan profile sheets as prudent construction practice shall dictate. So these are general provisions that are included in subdivisions in Wenham. There are several more. Shall I read them all?
I would say no.
I'm not going to read them all. I will just summarize. Work has to be completed within 3 years from the date or extended. The town may use consultants to supplement staff for inspections. The applicant shall record the covenant within 30 days of recording the deeds. The roadway is not intended to be accepted as a public way by the town of Wenham. This one I will read. It is intended that the maintenance of the roadway shall remain the permanent responsibility of the applicant and their successors in interest. The applicant shall record with this document the declaration of roadway easement and maintenance agreement shown as Exhibit C that indicates the responsibility of the private way will lie with the lot owners. I'm also going to make reference to 13, which says that construction activities, including maintenance, startup, and operation of vehicles or trucks on the site, shall be limited to between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Any exception to this has to be with specific approval of the building inspector and the police department. There's meant to be a pre-construction meeting at Town Hall with staff. 2 weeks prior to pre-construction meeting, the applicants need to submit a copy of the stormwater pollution prevention plan. Additional management plans before the pre-construction conference need to be submitted, including traffic management, which, as we've heard, is probably going to be important on the street, temporary traffic controls, et cetera, et cetera. And the stormwater operation and maintenance plan previously approved by the planning board and attached as Exhibit D has to be complied with during, is that it, Kate, or are we still going? Oh, there's many more. How many are there? Yeah, 23. 23. Okay, so let's just go quickly through and I'll explain what they are since we've started. The applicants need to conduct an on-site inspection. to observe what the erosion controls need to be at any point during construction. The town can go onto the site for making observations about compliance. Water services need to be installed in accordance with the water department's specifications. To lessen the demand of water use on the Wenham water system, all landscape irrigation shall be provided by a separate private well. We also have a special condition about no sprinkler systems, but we'll get to that. Can we go back, please? The Wenham Water Department is under extreme pressure from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to reduce water consumption. The applicant is responsible for mitigating this increase by providing the town of Wenham with a payment of $5 per gallon. This definitive subdivision approval is intended to run with the land of the subdivision. Okay, so that is what we have for the general conditions. Then there is a list of special or specific conditions, special conditions on this subdivision, which Kate is going to put up on the
Can I ask a
screen.
quick question while that's happening?
Absolutely.
Are there any plans for irrigation in the roundabout, in the landscaped area in the middle of the circle?
There's nothing on the plan right now.
Okay, thank you.
So
Would you like me to read these?
I would love to, since I just read all the
That's what I
general
figured.
ones. Get my water here.
The proposed special conditions are the following. 1, no site work shall begin until the applicant has obtained a permit from the Conservation Commission for work to be done within their jurisdiction. 2, no site work shall begin until the applicant has submitted an application and obtained approval from the planning board for any work done within Maple Street, which is a designated scenic road under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 15C. 3, applicant will adhere to the requirements of the Town of Wenham Water Department as listed in the memo dated August 8, 2024. 4, no irrigation system shall be connected to the public water service. If irrigation systems are installed, they shall be supplied by an alternative water source. We reiterate this
This is also in the general conditions. but-
5, the applicant shall adhere to the approved landscape plan and follow the recommendations of the town tree warden for the species of street trees to be planted. No final release of the covenant or any surety shall be issued until the trees are planted and the tree warden confirms their viability. And
This is the
6.
fire lane question.
I think we should take this separately.
Okay, so let's take, the motion is to approve,
Can we amend any of these?
Sure.
but we should put the motion out before we amend them.
Well, I have a...
Okay.
Well, discussion first. Dave, do you propose amending any of the general conditions?
No.
Okay, so then I would like to make a motion that approval of the proposed subdivision is subject to the general conditions 1 through 23 that were described.
Run that again?
That if we vote to approve the subdivision, it will be subject to
Be
general conditions 1 through 23.
And not these?
Well,
Gonna get there next.
we'll get there next, because you said you might have amendments.
Because you might have changes, so.
Second the motion.
All in favor, we can take a vote unless there's discussion. You uncomfortable with this? No?
This is just the general
It's
conditions.
just the general conditions. Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, aye.
Woodland, aye.
And now on to the special conditions.
So we should probably discuss, so Dave.
Let's take them one by one. No site work shall begin until the applicant has obtained a permit from the Conservation Commission.
No problem.
No change. No site work shall begin until the applicant has submitted an application and obtained approval from the planning board for any work done within Maple Street, comma, I would say, which is a designated scenic road under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 15C.
I just don't understand that. Why is any work being done within Maple Street? Is it adjacent to Maple Street or any work done that
In other words,
implicates
I think
Chapter 40, Section 15?
They have to move the stone wall in order to add the entranceway, isn't that
They're gonna
correct?
be regrading some of that
They have
area
to
too, to get the
regrade.
street in.
Right of way of the
So I think it's, Maple Street is a scenic road, designated scenic road. So if they're going to remove any trees or do anything
any
to stone wall,
earth
stone
movement.
walls, they have to come back to us for hearing.
But are those things within Maple Street?
Yes, because
Yes.
they're in the right-of-way. They have to take down that hill, too, and that's in the right-of-way.
So it's only what's in the right of way?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Which is like 10 feet in from where the road ends, or 12 feet, I can't remember how
Yeah,
big
about
it
and
is.
it includes the stone wall, so.
Perfect, then I'm good with this.
So you're fine with this? Okay. The third one is applicant will adhere to the requirements of the town of Wenham's water department as listed in the memo dated August 8th, 2024, which I believe the applicant has. That's okay?
Yep.
No irrigation system shall be connected to the public water service. If irrigation systems are installed, they shall be supplied by an alternative water source. Any comment on this one? I mean, obviously, all the water comes from the same general source anyway, but
So they still are subject to.
we do not have a ban on this. We just have we don't want them connected to the public water service because that definitely draws down the,
Correct, but it's still subject to town-enforced water bans, and
yes.
even though you're on the.
I think so.
Yes, even though you're on your own,
I think so.
well, yes. Mhm.
I mean, I don't think we're prepared to do this, but I'll just say that, you know, we need to do better on this as a town for a condition like this. I mean, it should be droughtscape, it should be, you know, if this development turns into massive lawns that are irrigated from private wells, I think we haven't done our job as this board, you know, I think we should do better, but I'm not prepared to offer any alternative language now unless anyone else feels inspired and Bob's up for it.
We have an implementation, a master plan implementation item around this, don't we?
Yes.
Definitely.
But we haven't done it yet.
We
So I
haven't done it
think
yet.
the
It's going
best-
to take a while to figure it out.
what we can do is this condition. It's my
Could
view.
we aspirationally put something in there like the planning board encourages the applicant to use drought-tolerant landscapes? So that I can sleep a little bit better tonight, or is there not really an interest in that? It's not binding, it's just aspirational, it's something that we would
But
hope
it's a
for.
special condition on approval, so,
All right.
I mean, I think we can say that orally.
Yeah, could we make you an example of somebody who did it and it looks good? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think it's a legitimate point. I do think that the irrigation use on this property is going to drop as a result of its change of use from agricultural to residential. But nonetheless, there's no reason that the houses can't be nicely landscaped with drought-tolerant species.
And certainly the center of the island could be.
Would the applicant be comfortable with that as a condition?
Again, I don't want to get into the conditions because it raises questions of enforcement and all that, but I think, you know, Mr. Bonfiglio wants to do a good job. He's, you know, this isn't going to be his last subdivision, and so I think you'll see nice-looking buildings and you'll see nice-looking landscaping.
I think that's going to require us to amend the landscape plan.
Right.
So I don't think we need to do it here as part of special condition 4.
Are you comfortable with that?
We're not ready to do this, but the only reason I made a comment, I think this is something that we can do in the future, and we should insist upon.
Noted.
Noted. Flag planted.
Flag planted.
You're not alone, David.
Oh, I know.
Drought tolerant landscapes idea planted, yes. Okay, so we've touched on that. The applicant shall adhere to the approved landscape plan, this is also relevant, and follow the recommendations of the town tree warden for the species of street trees to be planted. No final release of the covenant or any surety shall be issued until the trees are planted and the tree warden confirms their viability.
So discussion point
Discussion on this?
Do we have to separately approve the landscape plan, or are we considering that approved if we vote to approve?
I think
Yes.
it's all part of the package, is it not, Kate?
It's just a separate sheet. It's not in the,
We're going to sign that page too.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that will be part of the package, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we want to say that in here? The applicant shall adhere to the approved landscape plan, which shall be part of the package approved, or something like that.
Well, it is part of the package.
Okay,
Well, I
so
would
we don't
take
need
out
to
the
say
word approve. Applicant shall adhere to the landscape plan.
approved as part of,
Yeah, something like that.
part of the motion. Part of the approval, board's approval. Okay, so it reads, the applicant shall adhere to the landscape plan approved as part of the board's approval. I don't know, that's probably too much.
Awkward.
Included in the board's approval. And follow the recommendations of the town tree warden, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, are people comfortable with that?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 special conditions. Can we
Six.
take a vote? Well, the sixth one, the sixth one we are going to take separately.
Correct.
So this, just to reiterate, the motion is to approve the definitive subdivision as submitted with the special, with the special conditions just articulated.
So I would move that special conditions 1 through 5 are a requirement of the definitive subdivision plan.
I would need a second for that.
I'll second that motion.
I'm
And-
sorry, special conditions 1 through 5 as amended
Right,
are a requirement of the definitive subdivision plan for 47
Right.
Maple Street.
and they're not numbered on our sheet, but they can be. And do I have a second? I have a second
I'll second the
for
motion.
that changed motion. All in favor, unless there's discussion further? No. All in favor, Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, aye.
Woodland, aye.
Okay, now we have the discussion of a special condition related to the fire lane signs. The way it's drafted, the applicant shall install no parking / fire lane signs along each side of the proposed roadway in order to keep an adequate width of roadway clear for fire apparatus.
I mean, in the past, haven't we just put in a subclause after proposed roadway, like comma, or as otherwise approved by the fire department? I mean, can't there be a discussion, and if the fire department decides less is sufficient? Or is that too I mean,
Well, if,
There isn't usually a waiver from the width. This is because
no,
of
I
the
think
width waiver.
what you're saying, Dave, is do we just want to delegate this to Jeff
yeah,
to say how many signs? And
yeah.
I'm not sure we want to do that, based on our previous discussion. Do we want to require 6 signs on this roadway?
I mean, I've never found him to be arbitrary and capricious. I mean, I don't think he's gonna.
But he is asking for 6 signs.
Right.
So we
Right.
know what he wants.
Well, I mean,
And if he's
Again, I don't
negotiating
think-
with us, that's a different story. If he's negotiating with the owner of the property, that's a very different dynamic.
I guess we don't know enough from Jeff about why he's asking for these.
I
this
think we
number.
do. Well, I don't know about the number, but he wants sufficient so that people understand that they don't, not meant to park on the pavement. And he has picked 6, there's 4 units and an entryway, so.
You know, I think if we mark the stem as no parking, it let the fire truck get within how many, so if you hit the cul-de-sac, you're in front of or behind 2 of the units. You're how many feet from that proposed house?
And where's
On
the
the
fire
lower-
hydrant?
Right, and where's the fire hydrant? I mean, you got to get from the fire hydrant to the pumper back to the house burning, right? So what are those distances? I mean, we're not expert, but
So I would think that if we're concerned about the stem, what we're calling the stem, that one sign on each side of the stem that says no parking either side, fire lane. But once you get to the cul-de-sac, and by the way, who's gonna park on the stem? Right, the houses are really on the cul-de-sac, and the existing house has parking elsewhere, because it doesn't have access
correct.
from the new road.
Yeah.
So once you get to the cul-de-sac, you've got 30 feet of pavement, which should avoid this problem, unless somebody's gonna double park, but that's a different
Well, he
hypothetical.
only needs 22 feet, right?
Right, so if you get, what are we saying, 6 feet width for a vehicle?
Parking space is usually 8 feet wide.
Okay,
So your
we're
30
still-
feet would, in theory, you could cut down to 22, and you still have 22 feet for you to maneuver your vehicle or your fire truck around the circle.
And if you're sticking out into that and he needs to bring the fire truck around, he is not gonna stop and not bring the fire truck in. He's gonna continue, so, I
Well,
do
they're not
think
gonna
that
scratch that
it.
truck, though.
They're gonna go right over that grassy knoll in the middle. They don't really
Yeah,
care. They're
that
knocking
grassy
anything
knoll is
down.
going out, where,
So I-
drought-resistant knoll, depending.
No.
I would think that one sign on each side of the roadway as you're entering on the stem would be sufficient. And it's also gonna send the message
How
that you
long is
shouldn't be.
the road, I don't have it, I don't have this, yeah, the section from Maple Street to the cul-de-sac is 200 feet? How many feet is that?
That's 250 to the center of the cul-de-sac roughly.
Yeah, so that's like 200 feet, so 1 every 50 feet, that's 4 down the bottom on the road part, and before you,
150 feet to the beginning of the cul-de-sac, approximately.
could we just say 4 on the cul-de-sac? I mean, on the,
On the narrow,
sorry, the roadways.
the straightaway?
Straightaway, the, prior to the cul-de-sac?
I would be
When
On the
it-
22-foot,
At
how about on
50
the
and 100 feet?
22-foot paved
Wide.
portion?
At 50 feet and 100 feet?
Yeah, or not even, yeah. Evenly spaced, I mean,
Well, that would be, if it's 150 feet,
yeah.
you'd put one on each side at the 50-foot and 100-foot markers.
Yeah, so
Great.
you'd have a gap, a sign, 50 feet, sign, and you'd have 50 feet to the end, so, yeah.
So,
Do
this,
we have consensus?
this special, well, let me just read it. This would read then, the applicant shall install no parking fire lane signs along each side of the proposed roadway between Maple Street and the beginning of the cul-de-sac, in order to keep an adequate width. Do we want to be directive about the number?
I think it would be clearer if we
it's-
just said
4.
foot, yeah.
Shall install 4 no parking signs. No, it's 2 along each side.
At the
Right.
50-foot and 100-foot
Interval,
mark,
mark, right.
marks from Maple Street.
Okay, let me just see how this can read. The applicant shall install 2 no parking or fire lane signs, I think it's no parking / fire lane signs along each side of the proposed roadway at the 50 and 100-foot marks between Maple Street and the beginning of the cul-de-sac in order to keep an adequate width of roadway clear for fire apparatus.
Wait, isn't the cul-de-sac the entire road? So isn't it the
The beginning of the,
turnaround,
what would you
whatever
call
is?
that? The bulb?
I think the cul-de-sac is the circular portion.
Just the
but,
circular part? Okay,
To
great.
me, I don't know.
That's,
That's my-
I would say there's a
limited
roadway
knowledge of
and a
French.
cul-de-sac at the end.
There's
It's
actually,
the-
frighteningly, there's case law on this.
I'm sure
Okay,
there is.
and you
another-
know
It's
it,
just
so
the
what-
bulb.
it is just
It
the
means like
bulb.
end of
Yeah,
the
it's
sac.
the bulb.
Yeah, so it's,
Coulet du sec, end of sec. It's the bag. And the beginning of the cul-de-sac.
you don't even need to say, you can just say the 50-foot and 100-foot marks from Maple Street.
From Maple Street,
Yeah.
okay, from Maple Street. All right, so as amended, do I have a motion to accept this special or to require this special condition as amended?
I'd like to make a motion.
I'm looking at you.
I know. I can read it
To
back.
install 2, if you can read that, good luck.
I was gonna say,
The
I guess
applicant
I
shall
could make a
install,
motion, I could
the
move it.
applicant shall install
Two.
2 no parking fire lane signs along each side of the proposed roadway at the 150 and 100-foot marker from Maple Street in order to keep adequate width of roadway clear for fire apparatus.
Second,
All in favor? Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, I.
Woodland, aye.
Thank you.
Question, hold on.
Yes.
When the general conditions, was there a requirement to get an earth grading permit?
I don't think so.
Not that I-
Because you only need an earth grading, an earth grading special permit from the selectmen if you're moving more
Isn't-
than a certain amount of earth.
1,000 cubic yards of earth?
Yeah, something like
Is
that.
that happening here?
I'm not sure, but sometimes there's an exception in there for approved building projects, like a subdivision road as well. So I suppose if we need to get the permit, we'll get the permit, but I haven't had to do one for a subdivision before.
But you're right, there is in the town's,
Bylaw.
No, the zoning bylaw has a permit for grading and redistribution of earth.
which I think
We
is,
will hold a public hearing.
that's
Planning
sort,
board shall hear and decide petition for permits.
but it's for a specific amount, which is a lot, is my recollection.
It's without special permit, except, where
Also
alteration of
earth
existing.
removal. You're not removing earth from this.
I mean, some earth might get removed, but I think that this might be a question for the building inspector. I sort of wonder, does that bylaw apply to the individual house lots? Does it, also apply to the private way? I'm not sure.
I don't think it has to be a condition of the subdivision approval, because if they trigger it, they're gonna need a special permit under the bylaw.
I do know that the building inspector has looked at this, and did not mention that was.
I'm only thinking because it seemed like it was a pretty big berm that was gonna be reduced.
So I'm gonna think about, 10 cubic yards of material is like a pile of compost that I get. So it's about that big,
Yeah,
right? So if you're going to 1,000, you have to multiply that by
It's this-
100.
it's this
It's
first
big.
floor.
Well,
of
is it
this.
going down by more than 5 feet?
Yeah, I mean, there's only about 10 feet of grade change over the entire property. I don't think there's any alterations of 5 feet.
It's
to
not
tell you
like
the truth,
taking
but
out a hill, for
yeah.
example.
Fair enough.
anyways.
We're good?
I think so.
So is there a specific approval of the subdivision, or is it taken care
We've
of?
already done it.
Great, okay,
No,
well, thank you.
no,
I don't-
no, we
then
haven't.
I'll get out
Oh, no, you
before
haven't?
No,
anybody
we
changes
haven't.
their mind.
I thought we
Hold
had-
on, we haven't
Oh.
done, we've approved general conditions and
Conditions.
special conditions. So I will make a motion that we approve the proposed definitive subdivision plan for 47 Maple Street, subject to the general conditions and special conditions that the board has
see what you're
just
doing.
voted on.
I will second that. All in favor, unless there's discussion? Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, I.
Woodland, aye.
Thank you all very much.
Yep,
Now it's been approved.
yeah, that's careful, thank you.
Good luck.
And we'll be back in a few weeks with plans to endorse and covenants and sureties and all that kind of stuff, so.
Just be nice to my neighborhood.
All right. The next item is the Spring Hill Farm request for bond reduction. And is Mr. Newman online?
I'm here.
And do we have the paperwork we asked for at the last meeting?
It was submitted.
Not only did I submit it, but I submitted it
From
like
him?
10 days
I'm
before
sorry.
the deadline.
I'm sorry, I haven't
September
recognized
17th.
you yet. I'm asking the staff a question. I think we
Oh.
all wanted a copy of the original conditions, and I did not get them. Did you get them?
I pulled it from the registry of deeds today.
So in the future, if we, and I'm not addressing this to you, but if we've asked at a previous meeting to have,
We did get these,
We did
when
not.
did we get them?
September 17th.
No, they weren't in that.
They-
They're
They're
not in
nowhere
that.
in there.
They're not in
I have an email from Margaret with, this as an attachment with Mr. Newman's letter. There were 3 attachments to the,
But this was in there?
While you're
Yes.
talking,
I
I'll
didn't see
copy
it.
them.
yeah. It
While you
was,
guys are discussing, I'll copy them.
there,
Okay.
It wasn't in the packet. It wasn't in the packet. It
What do you
might have been.
what do you mean the packet? No, it wasn't in the packet for tonight. I'm saying it was in,
For tonight.
we received an email from Margaret on September 17th with Mr. Newman's brief. And in that email, that was one of the 3 attachments. She included the subdivision approval with this condition. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. I did not see that. I was overseas on September 17th, so, yeah, did not look at that. I did notice that it wasn't in the packet for tonight. And I noticed that you asked for it. So,
And I noticed that the state of Massachusetts, and particularly our Southern Registry of Deeds, is just terrific and has a very, if you know how to use the system, all the information you could ever want is right there.
well, that's good. And we're waiting for Mr. Woodland to come back with copies. While we're waiting, I wonder, Kate, do you have anything to say about what the town has done since our last meeting with respect to Spring Hill Farms' request for bond release? I understand that there was a peer reviewer comment and that Margaret went out and looked at the site, so I'm wondering if you want to give us a little brief report on that. I have a written summary, but maybe you want to speak to that?
Yep, Margaret and I went out to the site and we noticed that there was some holes and damage to one of the sidewalks, and we went back up and it has since been all fixed.
Okay, so as of today, it's been repaired
It was repaired pretty quickly after we had brought it to their attention.
in September? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And so I actually was up there the other day again, and everything looks fine to me.
Okay. And the peer reviewer also has confirmed that everything
Yes.
he listed has been completed, is that true?
Yep.
Okay. Oh my goodness, what a concept. All right. Now we have the documents in front of us. Thank you very much for your patience, Mr. Newman. Do you have anything you'd like to speak to us about?
Well, I hope that each of you has received my, my written submission. I just go over it briefly. This is really a question of a contract. It's an agreement, a tripartite agreement that secures the completion of the work by the owner being my client. The work is defined in the document as construction of the ways and installation of municipal services in the subdivision of land depicted on the definitive subdivision plan of Spring Hill Farm. So that's what the work is. And then the contract explicitly provides that upon completion of the work, as evidenced by a certificate of completion, the interests of the town shall become void, and the lender, the third party to the agreement, may disperse such funds which have been held as security for such work. So, as we just heard, the work has been completed. The only difference between what I have to say today and what I had to say on September 12th is that, as has just been noted, Margaret observed that there was some small damage to the sidewalk, and a day or two after the September 12th hearing, my client went out and fixed that, and as you've heard, that's all in order now. And I think you've also heard that the peer reviewer confirms that everything has been done. So that takes care of, should take care of all but what's called the holdback funds, which is $81,200. And the holdback funds are not to be released until the earlier to occur of 18 months following the application of the finished top coat of pavement. And that happened about 2 years ago. So that since that happened 2 years ago, that's obviously more than 18 months ago, so we're entitled to the release of the holdback funds as well. So based upon the
Attorney Newman?
express
We have-
language of the contract.
Attorney Newman, can I ask you a question?
We need to ask a question. May we please ask you a question?
What's the total?
Relevant to what you're saying right now.
What's the total amount that you're seeking release for?
The total amount I'm seeking is the $72,700 for the completion of the work and $81,200 for the holdback, which comes to $153,900.
I have another question. Has the certificate of completion been issued?
That's up to the planning board to do.
We don't issue a
The
certificate.
peer review has been completed. The peer review confirms that everything has been done. The town planner went out and saw that everything has been done. So it's up to the planning board to issue a certificate of completion, which triggers the release of the funds. Essentially, that's the mechanism by which we get the relief that we're asking for.
I thought the certificate of completion was issued by the building inspector.
No?
I mean, we can say it's our understanding and we would recommend that the funds be released, but the certificate of completion that's required here, I don't think comes from us. I've never seen one before where we did that. It's like a building certificate type of issuance.
Can you, Kate, can you pull up the covenant, the performance bond? It's one of the attachments to this.
Sorry about this confusion, but I just don't think that's our,
Yes, it's going to address certificate of completion in one of these pages. There.
it says issued by
Second to
the
last.
board. So that seems like that was written into the special conditions.
It says right here, if I may, the performance bond, performance secured by lender's agreement, which is Exhibit A to my submission.
I think the confusion is that this has
And it
been
says
made,
right in it, as evidenced by a written certificate of completion issued by the board upon such a vote. Says right in the agreement, the tripartite agreement.
it does say that, and that's
Exhibit
unusual.
A of my, to my memorandum, page 2. It's
Okay,
right.
Attorney Newman, we're
in
not
the middle of
disagreeing with
page
you.
2.
We're not disagreeing with you. It's just unusual, and I haven't seen this before in my time on the board. But it was apparently felt that we should be offering you a formal, we, as opposed to the building inspector, should be signing off on the certificate of completion. We don't have a template certificate of completion tonight to sign off on, unfortunately. We can vote and say that it's our, we would recommend that a certificate of completion be issued, and we can, I think, probably come back and sign such a thing once it's prepared for us, but we don't have that in front of us tonight, just to be clear.
So I would say, I don't think there's any dispute that the work has been completed, the peer reviewer has signed off.
Margaret has inspected.
Yep, it's been inspected.
That's true.
So, well, hold on one sec. I'm gonna move that we issue a certificate of completion and release the remaining $153,900 on the performance bond. So I know you want to have discussion.
Did you just move?
I made a motion. I guess it needs to be,
Will need to be
Seconded.
seconded and/or amended. Were seconded and then amended and brought again. I mean, I'm uncomfortable because I don't have a piece of paper in front of me that says certificate of completion. I don't know what I'm issuing.
Well,
I would like
I-
the
I'm-
thing that I know I'm signing in to read it and so forth.
Right, and I think staff can prepare the certificate of completion for us to sign off on, but I think the applicant's entitled to a release of the funds under the bond, because this was a performance bond for build-out of the roadways and the infrastructure, and our peer reviewer is saying everything is done. I know there are other issues that we've discussed regarding the affordable
Yeah,
housing
I
unit.
don't think that's
But I don't think
relevant to
that
the-
falls under this issue here. That's gonna come up at a different time when we consider street acceptance.
So, do we have curb cuts for the lot 17A? Because that's part of the way.
Well, I'm assuming we do because the peer
passed.
reviewer said that everything has been done.
I mean, I didn't see anyone look for that. I mean, Kate, do you recall going up there and seeing curb cuts to an undeveloped lot?
There's no curb cuts over there from what I know.
So, the,
Dan would know.
and is there a water tie-in there for the undeveloped
I
lot?
do think they have the tie-in there. I don't know if they have the curb cuts.
I mean, those are two things that are definitely within the statutory definition of work, but I would also add that the certificate of partial completion that we signed off on in Exhibit B to Attorney Newman's letter includes remaining site work. And there's a lot of items in here that were not just statutorily defined ways and infrastructure. I mean, there's things on here, I'd be curious to understand, what was line item 59, renovation of existing home, $200,000. The way this project has approached work as a term, including under the certificate of partial completion, has not been limited to this phrase. And the money held back has not been limited to this phrase. And that's been the understanding for the past 8 years of this project.
But what's the work that we're saying isn't complete?
Well,
Because at the beginning of this, there's an email chain with the list. We saw it at our last meeting. There were like 8 or 9 items
And
that
we checked
needed,
through them.
that needed to be done, and they were all checked off, and the only thing that came up was the sidewalk repair, and now that's been done. So if our
Well-
peer reviewer is telling us everything is done,
On the
what are we saying is not done?
well, we know that there's a lot that's not completed. Now, I heard
I don't-
I heard the two of you say that you don't believe that that's within the scope of this performance bond, but what I'm seeing here on this list is quite a few things that are outside of infrastructure and ways, like slope grading, landscaping, other things that may implicate this development when that lot is developed. Are we going to have any recourse? The only recourse is the acceptance of the road. There'll be nothing left. We'll have no leverage left around any collateral aspects in the development of that lot. And the developer, the applicant, has played his hand in this memo and does not believe that he has any more obligations on that lot under.
Well,
I have a question for you. Is it obligations on the lot that you're concerned about, or is it curb cut and access to the lot that there won't be a bond for?
It's both. So if we take the narrow definition of,
Use the mic.
if we take the narrow definition of works, then at minimum, we all agree that there has to be curb cuts and a tie-in, because that is the infrastructure and the municipal way. I am concerned that there, historically on this project, and including in Exhibit B to Attorney Newman's memo, there has been an understanding that the performance bond covered other aspects of this development. What's going to come next is a request for street acceptance without a development of Lot 17A, as is a requirement. And the memo already states to the point that the applicant believes that the applicant has done all that is required under the certificate of decision. I do not agree with that, and I believe that there could be aspects of the further development of that lot that could implicate the types of things that we have held back on the performance bond previously.
So I don't agree with the applicant's statement in the memo either regarding lot 17, 17A, whatever it is. But with respect to release of the funds on the performance bond, I don't think that that issue is applicable.
But let me ask you this. So let's say they're going to develop that lot. And let's say they're going to have to move some earth. I'm not talking anything huge. And they're going to have trucks coming in and out of the way, the road.
We're gonna have to,
And that there's an implication to the road because of that construction traffic.
well, and the curb cut.
And the curb cut. They have not finished development of this project. And so we cannot release.
Roadways in the project,
Or,
because the curb cut's not done.
well, there you go. I mean, we have not seen the end of the development of this project. That's what concerns me, and we are now releasing these funds.
So my question would be, how much do you think we should reserve to make sure that if, when that lot is developed, the roads are fixed, the curb cut's made, and there may be somebody on this phone that could answer the question, on the call, that could answer the question about the curb cuts. We can get that resolved from Dan right now. Is there a price you want to put on that? I see that, I can see the argument, the development's not done, there's one more lot to go.
If I may, Dan Olet, Spring Hill Ventures.
Yes. Please.
Yeah, to answer your question, both the curb cut has been completed and there's a curb stop for water at lot 17.
So the curb cut is completed
17 or 17A?
Whatever
for
the-
17A, whatever we're calling the undeveloped lot at this point.
And if I may add something.
Dan, we're asking Dan, and he seems to be frozen, so just so you know, Dan, we can't hear you. Oh, you're
Okay,
back.
is that any better?
Yes, much better, thank you.
Okay, yeah, of course. Sorry about that. To answer the question, yes, the curb cut exists for lot 17, as does a curb stop for water service.
17S?
Is that the lot we're talking about, the Habitat lot that we have been having the conversation about?
Yes, that's correct. Lot 17.
Okay, because we've heard it called a lot of different things, so I just want to be certain I know what I'm talking about. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, if that is the case, I think, I do think there's an argument that says once you go in and develop, you may run into some problem that you need to do something in the street. Like, I don't know, bring in a water line. The water line is there, right? The water staff is there.
Right. Look, I think if we're looking at this bond as a discrete instrument, that I think the conditions have been satisfied and that we need to release the funds. And if we don't release the funds, we may be in breach of the agreement.
Isn't there also there's like a catch basin there? Isn't there a catch basin adjacent to the lot or within that lot 17A?
But is that covered by the bond, or is the bond for streets and infrastructure, water infrastructure?
Well, the catch basins, there's something there. Is it possible to put up Google Maps, Google Earth?
Can I see these conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
Wherever that table was that you were referring to.
I don't know what that is. What is that called?
That's the sediment, the stormwater runoff control.
Part of that whole
Thing.
start, yeah, so.
It's the stormwater management.
No. It's here. This is the lot, the undeveloped lot right here.
Okay, now I'm confused. I thought it was at the rear of the development.
No, it's right there. And
Is this the same thing that I have in my minutes? Yes. Where's that list?
Quite a zoom.
what are you looking for? Here it is.
The list. I just want to see what the items on the list are.
This is going to be a mega old photo. We gotta get a newer date. If you go to Google Maps, sorry that I sent you on a wild goose chase. If you go to Google Maps, we might do a little better.
So is your argument that the storm scepter is what we're talking about here?
Yeah, if you take a look at this with the layers.
Or is it the infiltration basin?
That's gonna, no, you don't need that. We'll do the other way. You had it. And then zoom in. I mean, isn't that, sorry, out a little bit, isn't that the lot right there? And you have,
Oh, it's gonna have a long driveway or something.
yeah, it's gonna have a long driveway right there. You've got some type of stormwater management thing there. This lot is not ready to go. There's gonna be stuff that's gonna happen, and there's implications to the infrastructure and the municipal way, potentially.
That's not the purpose of the performance bond.
So if that lot is ultimately developed, whether it's by Habitat or the applicant or anything else, and there's an impact to the municipal way.
The question that I have is which of these remaining items on the schedule that we said needed to be completed has not been completed? And is what you're saying that the item that hasn't been completed is the erosion control cleanup? Or the stormwater management erosion control measures? I mean, we had a checklist here of items that needed to be completed.
The problem is that when we adopted that in 2021, we didn't know what we know now, which is that the applicant does not intend to develop this parcel. And so we don't know what's going to be required in the development of that parcel in terms of the implications on the infrastructure in the municipal way.
Well, first,
It isn't a
Springfield,
municipal way right now. It's a private way.
yeah, it's a private way.
Understood.
And it can't be a municipal way until the town approves it.
Right, but the point being that if there's damage caused to that road and these funds have been released, the town's going to be in a pickle. Because eventually, this needs to become a public road. And so if the developer isn't going to cure it, we're going to have a real situation on our hands as a town. This is not a viable lot yet, I don't believe, for development. And that's the problem I have. And there's no surety at this point if we release these funds.
I understand what you're saying. So are you suggesting that there's some small amount of funds to be held back? I'm going to reiterate Mr. Woodland's question. What would that amount be? I mean, what's listed here was the stormwater management erosion control measures at $8,000, some landscaping, and catch basin work, drainage, swale, clean out, and so forth. I could imagine that needing to be dealt with at the time that lot is developed, and that it might cause damage to the roadway.
Can you put up the chart from our last meeting, which had the outstanding,
Yeah.
no, it's not that.
It's the bottom half of this. Yeah, from the last meeting, there's a chart that lists the things that we said
There it is.
or that
At the bottom.
No,
Was
this is from 3
agreed.
years
Oh.
ago.
that
Sorry.
It's not this one.
it's not this one. I thought it was the
Sorry.
bottom. I thought it was
It's,
the bottom part of it.
I know, it was in that September 17 email
I
as
mean,
well.
this thing contains things like real estate taxes,
Do you have access to the email that Margaret sent on September 17th?
contingencies.
If not, I can try to email it to you.
I'll find
and
it.
you
Bond
can Pull it up.
costs. I mean, this wasn't about the infrastructure municipal way. This was for the entire project to complete development.
You do?
You do? Can you throw it up on the screen?
So there's an attachment to that email that says email, that one, yep. So this is the, you need to just blow that up a little bit. Yeah, is it, can you
So-
collapse the right side so we can see the full window?
All contract construction items have been completed except the cleaning out of the Dodges Row wetland as it was agreed upon. But that task has been removed as a requirement. From a construction, this is from, who is this from? I'm sorry.
So DEP, we went out with them, and
That's-
they said
that's-
they didn't want them to clean out the wetlands because it would do more harm than good.
So William, I can't pronounce
Blaze.
that,
Bill Blaze.
is
What's his signature block? Weston, he's
Weston
our,
Sampson, he's our guy. Yeah, okay.
What's that full sentence say? The bond can be released as I do not believe the bond included a
A
street
street
accept.
acceptance requirement or the Habitat for Humanity construction completion. It is your call on the street acceptance and habitat lot issues. He's not a lawyer, he doesn't
yeah.
read conditions for us. He simply looks at engineering
Facts.
the facts, yeah, on the ground, so to speak. So these are the items that we said needed to be completed, and they have been, as I understand it. The only thing the thing that I can see that's connected to your concerns is the the storm management erosion control measures at $8,000, which that structure is on the lot that we're talking about. So if that lot gets developed, there may be some work that needs to be done with that. Would you agree?
I don't know why,
I'm not sure it falls under the performance bond.
I don't know why all of those wouldn't apply. In the sense that once there's been a final development of that final lot, why wouldn't there need to be street sweeping? Why wouldn't there need to be all of those things performed again? We don't know. Look, it is not the town's fault that that parcel has not been developed. The burden is not on us to release a surety when the final development has not occurred. I don't know why this board feels the need to allow for a release of performance when performance has not been completed for the project development.
For the full project
For the
development.
full project development. Look, I believe, I've said this before, this is not a surprise to anybody. I believe that there needs to be, absent a showing of, inability despite reasonable efforts, a duplex on that unit, on that lot. We can have a conversation about that at a different day. But one thing I think we can all agree upon, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary, is that lot is not ready for building. That lot is not ready to go. It's not like that lot is ready for a duplex to be built.
Well, and the relevant point is simply that once that lot is built out, there will be infrastructure implications. And so I think, I hear what you're saying, and it seems to me that the way to handle this is to withhold some money. And I just don't know how much money to withhold, is my problem.
I think we need to get guidance from our, so if Bill Blyce says, I don't know about the habitat lot issues, that's up to you all, then we should ask him, what is required for development of that lot? And what are the implications to the rest of the development?
Well, the infrastructure that the bond is meant to hold,
Fair enough.
that we're holding the bond to
Which is like
ensure.
water and street, sidewalk.
Final street, sidewalk, whatever.
Streets and
Can
infrastructure.
we look at the bond?
Do you have the bond? Can you pull it up, or do we have it in front of us?
We don't have it in front of us. It's in,
Is it on that?
it's an attachment to to Attorney Newman's
submission. We don't have it in the papers in front of us.
Bond is Exhibit A. Performance secured by lender's agreement.
Okay.
And I just want to say that the certificate of partial completion had a list of things that had to be done. And the peer review has indicated that all the things on that certificate have been done. So as a matter of basic contract law, we're entitled to the release of the bond.
But there was a change in how that last lot was going to be developed.
go up
And
to Exhibit A.
that is not been documented properly enough
Right
from
there.
myself. So we're in this because you're transferring that last lot that you were going to develop over to somebody else to develop, and we want to make sure that this development is whole at the end.
So, in the first paragraph, to secure construction of the ways and installation of municipal services in the subdivision of land. The question is whether that's been completed.
It's been certified that it's been completed.
We're
We haven't
discussing
certified
the
it
point.
yet.
You know,
You're trying to take this document, which is very clear, explicit, unambiguous on its face, and you're bending it to try to serve some other purpose. But the clear, unambiguous language of this document requires the release of the bond at this point.
So, Attorney Newman, I don't think we're trying to do that. We're discussing amongst ourselves here.
No. So this bond, the second paragraph, says that the full amount, $406,000, is to ensure the performance by owner of the work in compliance with all covenants, conditions, agreements, terms, and provisions contained in the following, which includes the decision.
The work is explicitly defined, and the work
In compliance with all covenants, conditions, agreements, terms, and
You're just picking
provisions.
something out of there. You go through the document, 4 pages, it defines the work in 9 different places, and the work has been completed.
Can you go to the next page?
The work may be more particularly defined, and a portion of the
Yes.
retained funds may be allocated to certain defined portions of the work, and the time for completion of such portions may be established. Where's the work defined?
The work is described above, and it's a statutory definition.
Oh, because it's the infrastructure and, yeah. And we have released everything except $81,200 and some other amount.
You're holding 153,900, it's being held.
Which is what the total was of those remaining items.
153,900,
right?
yep.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that the way forward is this. We either define an amount that ought to be held back against the concerns you've identified, which I think are legitimate, about what will happen to the streets if and when, well, I should say when, that lot is developed. Because we all agree that that lot is going to be developed, it needs to be developed. Whether or not that has anything to do with the bond money is not on the table right now. The question is there potential damage to the infrastructure that the town would need to hold money against to ensure that the way is passable after the development is finished? That seems to me to be the question on the table right now. And I mean, it's reasonable. It's a reasonable question. And we don't have an amount I don't have the ability to define what that amount should be. I just don't know enough.
I don't
See
either.
the issue?
I hear the issue. I don't think that was the intended meaning of the performance bond, which was to ensure that the ways were built out in the subdivision, which they have been. The infrastructure was built out, which according to our peer reviewer, it has been. From what I hear you guys saying is you're concerned that when Lot 17 is developed, there might be some kind of damage to Spring Hill Farm Road from construction vehicles.
Some other problem.
And who would be on the
Water
hook
break,
for that?
I don't know.
So, so if my truck, if I'm building that lot and I by accident, I don't know,
the
break
water.
the water main, so there's no water up Spring Hill, isn't that the responsibility of the builder of Lot 17 to fix?
Well, hasn't Lot 17 been conveyed?
Yes,
So the developer doesn't own any of the lots anymore, nor any of the land in the subdivision, as far as I can tell.
It's a tricky.
may I interject something? If you follow the logic, the bond in no circumstance would ever be released until every single lot in the subdivision was completely developed, that's not the theory underlying the bond.
Yeah, but yet it is. In practice. if
The
you
idea is to put in the
If you look at the
the street.
If you look at the list, can I see the list?
I think I gave it back.
I didn't
I gave it to you.
Nope, not me.
Here it is.
If you look at the list that
The
Weston
list-
Sampson
the-
previously.
The bond is to secure the work, not the
Attorney
list.
Mr. Anderson is
And the
speaking,
work
Mr.
is
Newman.
Attorney Newman.
The work is the installation of the,
You-
So what I see on this list, and this is Weston and Sampson, Spring Hill Farms Development, estimated cost for remaining site work, 73 items.
But that's the old list.
Yeah, but this is what we voted on in terms of certificate of partial completion. So it was the understanding of this board is my basis to believe that this was the work, construction budget, remaining costs. This was, there's a lot
The
of stuff in
original
here.
idea of the work.
Right. But this is what we voted on in the context of a certificate of partial completion.
But that was 3 years ago.
And now.
And our
those
peer
items
reviewer now is telling us everything has been completed.
Has been completed.
No, my point is something slightly different, though, which is there's a lot of items in here that do not have to do with infrastructure and municipal ways. So this concept that the performance bond has always been intended to be a singular concept specifically to reserve for the infrastructure and the municipal ways is simply not the case in terms of how this project has developed, which frankly, my understanding, came up at some point along the way. I think it was when we were dealing with the landscaping issue with the trees, there was active litigation in connection with this project. I don't know if that's still the case. I don't want to see the town get left holding the bag on this one. This project is not done with development. We are at a crossroads at this project. I am just very concerned that we are giving up leverage when I don't think we have to a developer that's telling us to our face that one of the conditions, and specifically the responsibility for the development of the affordable housing unit, frankly, a duplex on this site, is not his. And we are going to release the performance bond on that. That doesn't strike me as the right approach here. At minimum, I would want to have input from our peer reviewer that we could talk through and have a conversation. What is the potential financial impact for the development, the preparation of this lot for construction? What kinds of costs could be incurred? What kind of damages could be incurred to the the public way, or not, the not yet public way, the roadway and the infrastructure.
I do think that when this comes up to the town for a vote on acceptance, that's going to be an issue. And so to preserve the acceptance, potential for acceptance, it would be a good idea to withhold some money. I don't know how much money to withhold. I think there are two options here. One is we make that decision tonight based on nothing. I don't have enough information to suggest what that amount should be. Or we ask for information and take this up again at our next meeting. Or we vote tonight on what's here.
Which
And
is totally cool. Sometimes you gotta just take the vote.
Yeah. So shall we ask the applicant what his preference would be?
Well, there's a motion on the table that's been
Right.
seconded, so we have to, we have to do something with that.
Right, but I think we probably ought to unmute the applicant's attorney and ask if he wants a vote tonight, or if we want to ask for more information about what we should be reserving. Can you unmute?
Yes,
Mr. Newman, you need to unmute if you want to say something. I see your, I think that, is that his hand up? No, that's your hand.
I'd like a vote,
You'd prefer a vote?
yes.
Okay, can you repeat the motion on the table?
Well, I'd like to amend the motion.
Okay. Does your seconder agree with that?
So I'm looking at the bottom paragraph of, I don't know what page of the bond this is.
Notwithstanding anything herein to the contrary?
Right, that I believe that the holdback funds need to be released at a minimum, because that condition has been satisfied. We are more than 18 months out from the application of the top coat of pavement.
Okay.
So I will amend the amount of my motion from 153,900 to 81,200.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that again for you.
Okay. Any discussion, or shall we go to a vote? All in favor? Weeks says aye.
Pascarello says aye.
Anderson, no.
Woodland, aye.
So that passes. So then there's the remaining question of the 70, however many $1,000. Mr. Newman, do you want us to vote on that tonight?
What's my alternative?
Let's get a number about what needs to be reserved to make sure that if there's infrastructure damage when that lot is developed, that the town is covered.
I would
Well-
suggest also that we get an opinion from town council on whether we are able to continue to hold back these funds,
Okay?
and that we
Which
take
would-
this up at our next meeting.
That is another option.
Well, if that's going to be deferred till the next meeting, can we also, someone was suggesting getting an estimate for the cost of some work which you believe
Yeah,
may
yes,
be
we'll,
required. So can we get all these things done in time for the next meeting so that all the issues can be addressed at once at that time?
Well, the issue's remaining because we've just voted on releasing your,
No, I'm very happy with that. No, I'm talking about, you wanted to get an estimate on what work may have
Yes.
to be done, and I'm reserving my client's rights to say that that's not a proper consideration, but if it's something that concerns the board, maybe they can get that done in time for the next meeting.
yes,
think
and as Mr. Pascarello said, we'll get an opinion from legal counsel on what our options are in this position.
I'm not gonna take off my, I mean, is that gonna cost the town $5,000 to get an opinion? How does that work with town council?
no, they'll pay for it.
I mean, isn't this something that the
Oh, for
build,
town
like the,
council?
Or town
No,
council
we
is
pay,
just
I'm
we
sorry.
pay.
couldn't the building inspector, if we identified what kind of work you're concerned about, I'm assuming our building inspector might be able to give, or our public works department might be able to give us an idea, a ballpark.
But they would,
But can't we
The
get,
big concern would be the detention basin on the bottom.
Okay.
yeah.
so can't we just get our peer reviewer to show up at the next meeting? Or get an opinion and say, what is the risk to the work that's been done, including frankly the finished top coat of the pavement that we just released, but be that as it may, of development of that 17A lot? And put it on Weston and Sampson to say what the risk is, in financial
Well, how
risk
much,
is.
yeah, what's the amount that needs to be? And it's the detention basin as well, which is covered by the bond. Okay, I think that's how we'll proceed then, if that, which would, I don't think we need a motion on the remaining items. I think that's something we can take up at the next meeting. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. I've lost my agenda now in this.
There you go.
BTA communities.
The last,
Here's Peter's.
what?
Peter's not here, so I gave you his
Peter's not here, yes.
agenda. You said you.
Oh, no, thank you. Yes, I know Peter's not. I was wondering if we would have a 2-2 vote, actually, on that last one. The MBTA communities discussion. We had a vote by the select board and a letter to the state describing it, canceling the special town meeting and explaining to the state why that is the right thing to do at this point. There was a oral argument in front of the Supreme Judicial Court, the state's highest court, about 3A. Did you go to that?
I did not go to it, but I watched it.
I listened to it. I didn't watch it. I listened to it.
Did you, Dan, did you leave with the same sense, I think that many of us did, that they're gonna tuck out on the easy one, which is the guidelines?
Guidelines, yep.
I think at a minimum, they're going to take the 30A argument that 30A, the Administrative Procedure Act, wasn't followed.
Yep.
And I don't want to read the tea leaves with
That's what I would
whatever
do.
the court would do, but it didn't seem like a very good day for the AG's argument based on some of the questioning, and that the failure to follow the APA, and I think the argument that they're guidelines because the label is guidelines is not a very good argument,
No.
and I don't think the
It's a rule.
justices were buying that. So the question is, how far are they going to go, though? And I hope they don't take the narrowest course, because there are questions that many towns would like to see resolved.
Like the remedies
The
issue?
remedies issue and the scope of enforcement authority, I
Right.
think would be great if they could address
And those
those.
are all very technical in the arguments, but have real implications for what towns are going to do. I would note that, unfortunately for us, if the guidelines get thrown out, I mean, one of the reasons we were able to do MFOD 1 and 2 and put a lot of density out by the highway is because of the guideline. The statute itself doesn't give you that flexibility. So, on the other hand, if they issued the guidelines with the proper notice and comment and public comment, and I don't think it's sufficient to just have the towns comment on it, I think the public gets to comment on a rulemaking like that. They could pass something that would allow for that kind of distribution of the density, but it buys us time anyway.
And maybe we don't need distribution of the density, because, if we have a comment period, how did they come up with 24 acres for Wenham and 25% of our housing stock, right? So all the statute says is a district of reasonable size within a half mile
Within
of
a
the
half
station
mile.
area.
That's all it says,
That's all it says.
which was a modest approach the
Right.
original governor had when he proposed all this.
So for small,
Well,
the governor didn't propose it, but
it does define
That
the
was his
density.
deal.
Has
It
to
does-
be included in that.
it does
It's
define the-
15 units per
15 units
acre
per acre,
within
but
that.
But
Yeah.
who's to say that 2 acres or 3 acres is not a reasonable size?
Right.
Well, we know who. It's
Well, and
HLC right now
we also
says
know that
but-
the guidelines define us in a certain way as
Right.
as needing to do a whole lot more than we would have to do if we were a rural, what is it, an adjacent community?
yeah.
So the guidelines of what town you are, what type of town you are, is not in the actual legislation.
It is not.
All it says is you have to have a reasonable district with a minimum
Of
housing density.
15
messed up.
units per acre.
Yeah, they messed up.
Well, and, I mean, I don't want to get too far afield here, but if this comes out in, say, February and they strike the guidelines, the political landscape,
It's very
for a
different.
lot of reasons, is going to be extraordinarily different.
Yes. So we
don't
can't
know.
speculate on what will happen
Right.
with
But-
this. Well, we do know that there won't be any, there's still, is, the deadline for compliance isn't in the statute, is it?
No.
No. So
That's the point.
that was
yeah.
one of the
That's what I
arguments
thought.
that I think it was Justice Wolahogian mentioned, which was
About the
Well,
definitiveness
how do
of
you-
the guidelines, yeah.
why would Milton not be in compliance? Because the deadline comes from the guidelines, and if the guidelines get thrown out, then you
Right.
don't have a deadline to enforce, is what the
Right.
gist of that was.
Just save space throwing it out there. I mean, is there any, well, I agree. I hope that there's something said about the enforcement aspect, because
And by that, for those who might still be listening, even though we're 2 hours in, we mean, can the Attorney General sue a town that doesn't comply because that enforcement provision is not in the statute? And the other portion of the statute, and I don't know this part, you can probably do a better job at this than I can, but it sounded like the other portions of the statute that authorize the Attorney General to enforce the laws of the Commonwealth, et cetera, is not generally used for zoning?
well, it's in 40, it's in 40B,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not, they didn't put it in this 3A. So they've done it intentionally in other sections, but they're
So
not
they
doing it
put
here.
the authority into the section, the specific section itself, but they didn't do that here.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, so the Attorney General tried to make an argument that they have authority under 40A Section 7, but the
Which
counter-
is the general zoning.
Yes, but the counter argument to that was the Attorney General used to have authority.
That, and they took it out.
and it was
and-
removed.
Yeah.
So,
I also thought it was a good point that the legislature has relooked at the remedies aspect and amended it to add a 4th grant.
mhm.
And they didn't do a lot of other things.
And if they wanted to add 10 more, they would have done
For an
so.
enforcement right by the AG's office.
Right.
And at least 2 of the justices picked up on, or noted the point that, or asked the Attorney General's office, aren't you really going after the franchise of the town here? Because this
They
is,
voted on it.
this is the vote of the town.
Which is the general construction of how zoning amendments get handled in Massachusetts.
Right.
Towns get to vote.
So, anyway, if you're interested in this, you should really take the time and watch those arguments, because they were well done.
Which is
Interesting.
why I think as a town, we need to, I'm going to circle back to master plan, why we really need to look at what zoning proposals we need to make as a town to start carrying that out. So as this is all happening at the state level, at least we're preparing ourselves for, we want to build a diverse
What we
housing
wanna
stock.
look like,
Right, what
yeah.
we want to look like, so that if we ever have to fight, we say, well, no, we're working on this. I think we'll have a better position with town
I
members.
also I also have to say that MFOD1 is a reasonably sized area within a half a mile of the station. So
It could
I think-
satisfy many of the requests that town
we could-
people have made.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's an interesting point, because I think if the SJC is going to flip something and they take the narrowest approach, I think it's going to be, these weren't promulgated properly under 30A, so go back and do it properly, which is
Right.
going to take some time,
Right.
and we don't know what future regulations are going to look like. So I hear what you're saying about MFOD1. I mean, I guess one of the things we could look at are contingency plans for, would we want to just stick with MFOD1, or would we want to look at something smaller? Because the only reason we have a 6.3 acre parcel there is because they told us we couldn't split lots,
Right.
right? And why can't we split lots if we want to say, you know, let's just do a 3 acre
Reasonable is
or something?
4.
Yeah.
Or reasonable is this.
And I think we should really look, because we can't lose the density requirement. So maybe we have to look at this in reverse order, as how many units do we think is reasonable for,
Well, and so I had
Stationary.
proposed at one point that we do this work with the town stakeholders, which is to ask Eric Mansfield, how many more water connections could you support in terms of density? Ask the schools how much more students, what would be the impact of different amounts of students, fire and police. And I know it's a little bit sensitive because around budget talks, nobody wants to say they have capacity for anything. But I still think that everyone should chime in and say, if push came to shove, how many more units could you support? I would also just hold the mic for a second longer and say, I was one of the most troubling parts of the whole process, and I was resistant to the whole thing, but I laud, you know, Dan, your work, tireless work, Robin's sitting through countless revisions and whatnot, and having to be a broken record doing her job, which was, if you're not doing it in other aspects of development, you can't do it here. So this whole premise that we were going to increase potentially our housing stock by 25%, relying on, you know, bylaws, zoning bylaws that are relatively old, struck me as unfortunate. And so I would say, I reached out to people in the planning community. They encouraged us to look at Sharon's bylaws as a community that's redone their bylaws recently and may have some more 21st century things. Canton was identified as
Our subdivision ordinance needs to be,
No, Canton is for the subdivision rules and
Yeah.
regs. So that's a community that we could look at. You know, could we bring those up in the time that we have before the issue comes back up? That would be my dream, and it's certainly consistent with what the master plan, our
Well,
dear Kate,
I think-
is motivating.
I think that implementation of the master plan, has there been any decision made about, is that coming through us to come up with a list and start moving, or is this going to be punted to a committee? Do we know?
Kate's got something awesome. Do you remember, were you there for that meeting?
I don't think I was, so.
So basically, we're gonna be focusing on those 3 sections that I presented.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we'll be doing is
And we
engaging all the
is
different boards and
the-
getting everybody together soon.
We as the staff and trying to, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not on us to come up with a list of priorities based on that? Okay. Because I do think that it would be better to have gone into that whole process with an implemented master plan that we could point to and say, yeah, we're going to do this kind of change.
Now's the time to clear the deck and
and
get you
get
guys to
going
come
on
to
that,
us
and
say,
then
what are you
when
gonna
this
need
comes
for-
back
this is our
around,
vision, how do we
be better
support that with
prepared.
zoning?
Okay,
Absolutely.
I think I'm going to call this one discussed and move on to the next bullet, which, David, you were going to talk to us about.
I'll be super brief on
Submission
this.
plans.
Yeah, I'll be super brief, and obviously we're gonna have
And
Margaret's
the item
input.
is, we have our own rules about, what needs to happen in order to satisfy us, so that we're ready to go to a hearing. It's like a set of process rules, and David was going to take a look at them.
So I went through a lot of towns, and a lot of them, including neighboring towns, have, like, if your meeting is on, actually, they publish a schedule of meetings at the start of the year of dates, and then they put deadlines for submissions, and they're usually like 3 weeks before. And like, if you look at Beverly, what they'll do is say, you have to submit 3 weeks before, and then at that first meeting, The only thing that will happen is a date for the opening of the public hearing will occur, which is a little weird to me. It seems like that doesn't work with the timing, but maybe it does.
Yeah, there's statutory requirements about how many days you have to
Right.
respond, you have to
135,
respond,
90,
yeah.
whatever. So that was interesting to me, but like what I was hoping for, I never found, which is kind of just like an omnibus set of guidelines,
Like
rules,
process rules.
which is like, if you want something to be considered at a meeting, it must be submitted at such a time. If there's a revised plan, it has to come in. If this happens, if you want something, there just wasn't, I'd never found anything like that, which just told me, like, I don't see any reason why we can't publish that, even if it's not enforceable in the sense that we couldn't exclude something, we could at least be consistent in how we approach things, and we could, maybe it would help people kind of self-comply.
Everybody would-
Suppose at the next meeting, we actually get out of we have process rules. Let's get them out, put them on the table, and talk about what we want. I don't think we have to look to some other community for what they do, but as long as we're within the requirements of the law that, that we're bound by, I think we can say what we want. And, I think, a couple weeks ahead of time is not too much to ask. So, anyway, can you just note that? And, yeah, that's great.
So we can either be what we currently have, and we can just review that live all together, or it could be you and Margaret telling us, like, this is what we would want to have happen, and what do you think, and then we can give
I
input.
think we definitely need to have that input, for
Or
sure.
we can do just a live working session and come up with what we want or something, I don't know. I don't know if that's the best use of time, but we can give it a shot.
Well, the homework is to pull it out and look at it. Minutes. Thank you for your edits.
Oh, you're welcome.
I've gotten much,
I'm not looking at these. I've already looked at them, so.
okay. Oh, these are the MBTA zoning committee, okay.
Yeah, this first was our joint meeting with Hamilton.
Mhm. I will note that we got a nice note apologizing from Chairperson Crouch, apologizing for some of the statements that were a bit derogatory. So I appreciated that. I asked Margaret to write a note in response saying thank you from us. We're all doing our best here. The only thing I would note is the meeting was open for questions at the bottom of the page. I think it was the Hamilton Planning Board had a number of questions.
Sure. Makes sense.
Just a silly nit, but.
Most of these are silly nits, so.
And Catherine's with us, so she'll hear them.
Thanks, Catherine.
We're
Yeah.
done reading? Yeah, motion to approve the minutes of the joint meeting, August 21st, 2024 as amended.
Oh, I'll second the motion.
All right, all in favor? Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, aye.
Woodland, aye.
All right, September 12th.
Sorry, I just
So
having a
the
hard time.
amount of that bond is 57,000 for Lily Lane. Just to say, I'm not deliberating, I'm just reading it. I would move, that's not another page, right? I would-
Yeah, there is.
Oh, is there? Yeah, there, I thought there was.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept as edited the meeting minutes of 9,
September 12th.
September 12th to 2024 of the Wenham Planning Board.
Second. All in favor? Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, I.
Woodland, aye.
And so our next meeting, I would take a motion to
Just one more.
adjourn and, what, there's
more
one,
minute.
there's one more?
So the
do-
other one just wasn't on the agenda.
Oh,
But if
okay,
so,
fine.
we'll do it.
So we're good,
Let's
great.
do it another time. I need a motion to adjourn our meeting until November 14th at 7 PM
So
in Town
moved.
Hall. Seconded?
Second.
All in favor? Weeks says aye.
Pascarello, aye.
Anderson, I.
Woodland, aye.
2 hours, 10 minutes.